And before we dive into a very busy day in Washington, D.C., an update on the manhunt for the United Healthcare CEO in New York. More details revealing clues about the lone shooter's intentions, including words that were found on the ammunition. NTD's Chris Beers brings us that story.
Authorities searching for the killer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson released photos of a person of interest who's wanted for questioning in connection with the shooting. The man fits the description of the shooter that authorities gave yesterday. The cylindrical couch and black and white checker pattern on the floor behind the man depicted signal he could have been staying at a hostel in Manhattan's Upper West Side. Mateus Toronto, who's currently residing at that hostel, says he saw police there Wednesday evening. About 12 hours after the United Healthcare CEO died, police in the area where he lived were notified about a bomb threat at his home. Authorities in the Minneapolis suburb of Maple Grove said they were investigating a suspected swatting incident, adding it appears to be a hoax. Swatting is when someone falsely alerts authorities to a threat in an unsuspecting person's home. A SWAT team or other law enforcement resources are then dispatched to the home, disrupting the victim and their family. Other details emerging hint at the CEO killer's possible motives. Law enforcement said the words deny, defend, and depose were written on the spent shell cases from the ammunition used to kill Thompson. The term depose can mean to testify or to remove someone from office. What's more, these words are similar to the phrase delay, deny, defend, which is the title of a 2010 book about the insurance industry. The subtitle of that book was Why Insurance Companies Don't Pay Claims and What You Can Do About It. Victim Brian Thompson was on his way to United Health Group's 2024 Investor Summit just before 7 a.m. yesterday morning when he was shot and killed. Surveillance video shows Thompson walking alone on 54th Street next to the Hilton Hotel. The shooter then steps onto the sidewalk, stops, raises a handgun with what appears to be a silencer attached to it, and fires towards Thompson's back. The CEO rapidly twists to see the gunman, falls into a wall, and tumbles to the ground. He's then approached by the killer, who continues to fire. Authorities say they found 3 unfired rounds and 3 shell cases at the scene.
The shooter then walks toward the victim and continues to shoot. It appears that the gun malfunctions as he clears the jam and begins to fire again. The shooter then flees on foot northbound into an alleyway between 54th Street and 55th Street. Once at West 55th Street, the shooter continues to walk westbound on Avenue of the Americas, where he gets onto an electric e-city bike and rides northbound on the Avenue of Americas towards Central Park, where at 6:48 a.m. we have the shooter riding this bike into Central Park at Center Drive.
I hear the 3 shots. I was parking down there in the car. I hear 3 shots. Yeah, and then when I looked, there's a man down. Yeah. Yeah, and then the guy crossed and then he ran. He's a white male, all in black, with a backpack. He crossed this way.
I want to be clear. At this time, every indication is that this was a premeditated, pre-planned, targeted attack.
The CEO of United Health Group, Andrew Whitty, released a statement addressed to employees. He expressed his condolences to Thompson's family in an emotional video. Minnesota Governor and former vice presidential candidate Tim Walz called the shooting a tragedy and said he knew the CEO personally. United Healthcare is based in Minnesota. New York Governor Kathy Hochul called it tragic. Chris Beers, NTD News.
A tsunami warning for the West Coast issued today and then later canceled. Authorities advised people to stay away from the coast of Northern California and Oregon after an earthquake.
Yep. So earthquake waves, the shaking, the waves that give us shaking from earthquakes, those travel much faster than tsunami waves. So tsunami waves in the ocean, in the open ocean tends to travel about as fast as a jet plane flies, whereas earthquake waves travel much faster. And that means that it's easier for us to give tsunami warnings because there's a little bit of a time delay there.
The warning was first issued after an estimated 7.0 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Humboldt County this morning. The shaking from the quake was felt as far as the San Francisco Bay Area. People posted videos of their swimming pools shaking. Around noon Pacific time, the Tsunami Warning Center did cancel that alert. The San Francisco Zoo closing for the day and evacuating customers. Now the Tsunami Center says no tsunami danger presently exists for Northern California and Oregon. And Trump's Secretary of Defense pick, Pete Hegseth, appears to be getting the support he needs for Senate confirmation. NTD's Jack Bradley joins us live now from Palm Beach, Florida, right near Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. Jack, good evening. So tell us, how is Pete Hegseth doing in terms of drumming up support from the much-needed 51 senators? And it does look like Jack is... He's trying to come through. Jack, are you able to hear us? If you are, give us an update on the situation with Pete Hegseth hitting the Hill.
Hegseth, he's met with a lot of senators who have come out publicly or throwing their support. It's been a rocky road, Joni.
Sadly, the connection there is not doing too well, Jack. We're going to have to get back to Jack in just a moment. We'll try to reestablish connection there. In the meantime, the House will soon release its report on the 2 attempted assassinations against President-elect Donald Trump. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Martinez, joins us now live from the Capitol, from the studio with some of those details. Luis, what can you tell us about today's hearing, and what can we expect to come out of Congress?
Of course, so today's hearing is the last hearing of this bipartisan task force that was initially going to investigate only the first attempted assassination against President-elect Donald Trump on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, but then had the added responsibility to also investigate the October 5th attempted assassination in West Palm Beach, Florida. Now, Acting Director Ronald Rowe says and told bipartisan task force today that he's already implementing reforms within the Secret Service in 4 critical areas. Let's listen to what he had to say.
4 areas of deficiencies were identified: communications, protective advance processes, command and control processes, and coordination with external entities.
So it's very interesting because he also announced to the bipartisan task force that he's creating an aviation unit within the Secret Service, and that's to conduct all drone operations within the Secret Service, and also a field operations unit that one would think already exists, but it's to have better communications with field offices. And now the chairman of that bipartisan task force, who is the Republican congressman from Butler, Pennsylvania, Mike Kelly, and the Democratic ranking member, Jason Croft from Colorado, both showed themselves to be very pleased with the bipartisan nature of the investigation thus far, and actually made comparisons to the lack of bipartisanship in the January 6th committee. Let's listen to what both ranking members had to say.
So the 3 goals to start off with: number 1, to understand what went wrong on the day of the attempted assassination. We're talking about July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania. To ensure accountability and to prevent such an agency failure from ever happening again. That is a tough task.
Although we received more cooperation from some federal agencies than others, we have been able to firmly establish the facts. We have also critically worked in an overwhelmingly bipartisan manner to ensure that the American people have the answers they deserve.
So, Steve, today was the last hearing, and now we're waiting until December 13th when the House and the bipartisan task force is supposed to release their recommendations for the Secret Service.
And so, Louise, ultimately, who will be in charge of implementing some of these recommendations that lawmakers give to the Secret Service?
Well, as of now, it would be Acting Director Ronald Rowe, but there's that caveat, Acting Director. He's the one who took over after Kimberly Cheadle, who was appointed by the president, resigned after the first hearing. He was the Deputy Director of the Secret Service. So he's expected to implement these recommendations, but it remains to be seen if President-elect Donald Trump will pick a new Secret Service director. Let's listen to a heated exchange in between Congressman Pat Fallon from Texas and Acting Director Ronald Rowe today during the hearing.
agent in charge that
No, I wasn't. I was there representing the United States Secret Service, sir.
Mr. Fallon, your time's
It did not
expired.
affect protective operations.
Fallon, your time's expired.
Because you wanted to be visible, because you weren't listening for this
I was
job.
there to pay respect for a fallen member of this agency.
You endangered
You are
President
out of line,
Biden's life,
Congressman.
Vice President
You are out of
Harris's
line.
life.
So that got very heated. It was a very interesting exchange. Congressman Pat Fallon from Texas was actually questioning Acting Director Ronald Rowe on his presence during the September 11th commemoration ceremonies in New York City, where he was actually the closest Secret Service agent to the president, but wasn't the special agent in charge. So Congressman Pat Fallon was questioning whether or not that was because he wanted to be in the public eye and being seen close to the president, maybe auditioning for the actual position of director of the Secret Service.
Certainly an emotional exchange we just saw there, an emotional time. And one might imagine out of all the picks for President-elect Trump, that'll be a very emotional pick, as his life was on the line and will continue to be for the remainder of his term and beyond.
And let's not forget that a person did lose his life during that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Yes, indeed. The firefighter there. Yep. And appreciate it, Louise. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, the co-heads of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, meeting with lawmakers on Capitol Hill today. House Speaker Mike Johnson inviting the duo to a private meeting with lawmakers to discuss how they plan to slim down the federal government.
There won't be a lot of detail for the press today, and that's by design, because this is a brainstorming session. It is the first, again, as I said, of a long series of meetings that will be held as we're laying the groundwork for the new year and the new Congress. And you're going to see a lot of change around here and in Washington and the way things are run. We need to make government more efficient, and that is what this whole objective is. It's what the DOGE effort will be about. And you're going to see a bicameral cooperation, and it will be, by the way, bipartisan. Over the last 24 or 48 hours, you've seen a number of our Democrat colleagues, both in the Senate and the House, who have said, you know what, sign me up. I want to be a part of this as well. So we welcome that. It should be a bipartisan effort.
A bipartisan effort, DOGE is tasked with firing federal workers, cutting government programs, and slashing federal regulation. Musk shared a Senate report today which found that only 6% of federal employees work in person at the office on a full-time basis. Johnson responded to the report by saying, "This is exactly why we need the Department of Government Efficiency." Over 50 Republicans and 2 Democrats are already launching what they call the DOGE caucus in the House. Despite its name, the DOGE is not a government agency and instead is more of an advisory panel. So how do Americans feel about a government efficiency program with Elon Musk at the helm? And what would they like to see accomplished under it? NTD's Sam Wong was out in the National Mall to hear from the folks.
What do you think about the idea of having a Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk at the helm?
I think it's a good idea to have someone in the private sector who's been a businessman, maybe cut out some of the excessive waste in the federal government.
We absolutely should have it because we need to cut down on expenditures that do not benefit the country or the taxpayers.
I mean, it's a little unexpected and surprising, but, you know, the Department of Defense has failed audits numerous times, so if they're going to clean stuff up like that, then I guess it's not so bad for the country.
Government spending is out of control, and the programs that it supports are out of control, and there should be some kind of policing of that.
It's very nice to say we're going to cut fat until they're cutting your fat. It all sounds good in bullet points and a PowerPoint, but when you actually have to make policy out of it, that's when it becomes a problem.
Elon Musk is just following Trump because he wants to make more money in the next administration.
Well, I think it's a great idea to cut back whatever waste that we can in the discretionary part of the budget. It's just that you can't cut $2 trillion when you only have $1.7 trillion in total to cut.
What specifically would you like to see done under the new department?
Well, I'd like to see citizens taken care of. I would not want to see money like going to, I saw one example of like studies of butterflies in Europe.
Our tax-paying dollars being used for ineffective projects, I think like for the FDA or something.
Well, for example, the uniform allowance for the federal officers, that's $500 a year, whether they need uniforms or not. That goes straight to the company that's providing it rather than whether or not they need it.
What a lot of people don't know is there's $36 trillion of debt that's on balance sheet, but there's over 100 trillion that a private company would have to show that are future unfunded obligations. And so we also need to be telling the American people that.
When Elon Musk took over Twitter, he kind of herd 70% of the workforce, and it still seems to work the same. And I don't think it should be looked at as a left-right thing. It should be looked at for the whole entire country to come together and save some money in areas that we can save money in.
Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, appears to be getting the support he needs for Senate confirmation. NTD's Jack Bradley joins us once again. We're going to try this connection out from Palm Beach. Jack, happy to have you back here. Hopefully the connection will work a little bit more stable for us. How is Pete Hegseth doing right now, drumming up support from the Senate?
Good to see you too again, Steve. Well, as far as getting Senate support on the Hill, he's getting a lot of Republican Senate support. People who've come out, most of them are throwing their full support behind Hegseth, with the exception of Senator Joni Ernst, who did meet with Hegseth, but has not indicated whether or not she will vote for him during the Senate confirmation vote. And this is all coming about amid a hard and rocky path for Hegseth, amid allegations of sexual assault and allegations of excessive drinking, all of which he has denied. Now, Tommy Tuberville said that Republican senators should not be questioning Trump's decision here. Then that should be left up to Democrats. Take a look.
Donald Trump did all the vetting they needed to do on Pete Hegseth, and I just can't believe we even have people on our side that are saying, well, I've got to look at this, got to look at that. What they're doing is they're throwing rocks at Donald Trump. They're not throwing them at Pete Hegseth. They're throwing them at Donald Trump, because they're saying, well, we don't believe you did the right vetting, and we don't believe he can do the job. Wait a minute. That's not our job to do that. That's the Democrats.
Senator Tuberville is part of the Senate Armed Services Committee, which will oversee the vote of Hegseth in January when the new Congress comes in. Also on there, and throwing his support behind Hegseth, is Senator Mike Rounds, who said that Hegseth meets all of the base and more so requirements that he needs to cast his vote for him. Take a look.
I really think the president's got the right approach in this particular nominee in terms of his vision for making the Department of Defense more lethal. I think that's what the American people want. They want the Department of Defense focused on lethality, getting those war fighters in condition, and then giving them every single tool they can to make sure that the defense of our country is primary in that department.
Now, Republicans hold in the next Senate a 53-47 majority there, and meaning that Hegseth can only afford to lose 3 Republican votes, assuming that all Democrats vote no in that instance. Now, as far as the Senate rejecting a nominee by the president, this is something that's very uncommon. The last time that this happened was back in 1989 under George H.W. Bush, and speaking of which, it was also for the Secretary of Defense position. Steve?
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.